Hello everybody. Happy Tuesday, November the 11th, 2025 edition. I hope you're doing well. Thank you so much for stopping by. Today, 11/11 is Veterans Day. So, happy Veterans Day. So thankful for all those that are currently serving in the military. And I know we have a Memorial Day for those that have passed, but I still like to remember all veterans, whether past or present, today. And was thinking about my granddad. My dad just passed away Thursday, but his dad, my dad was named after his dad, and my dad's dad was a sergeant in the Army during World War II. And that's a picture of him. So remember my granddad today. And I'm also going to be showing some cards of my dad's. The very first year that Topps had Topps Archives was 1991. And my dad, who got me started on through the mail autographs, sent off a lot of his cards from the 1991 Topps Archives off and got them autographed. So I'm going to be sharing some of those that he got autographed, but all of the ones that I show are people that served in the military. So just, they're the real heroes. A lot of times we think of sports or athletes as heroes, but here are some baseball players that were in the military that to me are the real heroes. So just like to share their autographs and remembering them and being thankful for all those that have served. Starting off here, we have Dusty Rhodes, who was in the United States Navy during World War II. He was a 1954 World Series star, and I won't go into great detail. Maybe on future videos I can talk more about him. I got a lot to show here. I think I got 84 different veterans that I'm going to show that played baseball, but Dusty Rhodes is my fellow Alabamian. I like to acknowledge that anytime somebody's from Alabama. As you can see, born in Matthews, Alabama, James Lamar Dusty Rhodes. Up next, we have Jim Hearn, who was in the U.S. Army during World War II. He was a 1952 All-Star and a 1954 World Series champion. Up next, we have Sal Ivars. And I'm missing my dad so much because my dad could pronounce their names right, and I'm probably butchering some of the names up. One of the many things I miss about my dad, but he was, sometimes I'd mispronounce their names and he'd correct me, and sometimes I'd remember, sometimes I don't. But Sal Ivars, he was in the U.S. Army Air Forces. I love the looks of these cards, and the autographs are nice. Clem Labine, who was in the U.S. Army paratroop. He was a U.S. Army paratrooper, 2-time All-Star, and 3-time World Series champion. We have Jim Dyke, who was in the U.S. Navy. I ain't going to show all the backs, but just every once in a while, I guess I can show some. Born in Omaha, Nebraska. Next is Ken Heinzelman, who was in the United States Army. In his very first start in the major leagues, he threw a complete game victory, which I think is rare to have a complete game your very first game. Up next, we have Wayne Terwilliger, who was a radioman with the Marines on an amphibious tank. Al Aber, who was in the military during the Korean War. He was in the U.S. Army. Bob Addis, U.S. Marine Corps. I like the Cubs bear. We have Ray Murray, who was in the U.S. Army Air Force. We have Hall of Famer Johnny Mize, who was in the United States Navy. He was a 10-time All-Star, 5-time World Series champion. He was the 1939 batting champion, and he was 4 times the home run leader. Great player. The Big Cat. Up next, we have Bill Rigney, who was with the United States Coast Guard. He was an All-Star in 1948. Bob Keegan, who was in the United States Army. He was an All-Star in 1954. I love to collect autographs of people that pitched no-hitters, or collect cards of people that have pitched no-hitters. And Mr. Keegan pitched a no-hitter on 8/20/1957. Another Hall of Famer, Bob Lemon, who was in the United States Navy. He was a 7-time All-Star, 2-time World Series champion. He also pitched a no-hitter on 6/30/1948. I love the way that autograph looks. We got Hank Sauer, who was a United States Coast Guard, 2-time All-Star, and he was the 1952 National League MVP. Carl Erskine, who was in the United States Navy. He was a 1954 All-Star, 1955 World Series champion, and he pitched 2 no-hitters. Love that autograph as well. All these autographs look nice to me. I love when they personalize them. They personalize this one to my dad. Like I said, these are my dad's cards that he sent off. And we have here Bill Glenn, who was in the United States Army. Just remembering all these players, or recognizing them. I don't really remember them. They were before my time, but recognizing them on this Veterans Day. Just so thankful for all those that have served. Could never give them enough credit, but may we try. Mickey Vernon, who was in the United States Navy. He was a 7-time All-Star. Was a World Series champion in 1960 and was a 2-time American League batting champion. Ewell Blackwell, who was a mess sergeant in the United States Army. 6-time All-Star. He pitched a no-hitter on 6/18/1947. Dale Crandall, who was in the United States Army during the Korean War. 11-time All-Star and won the World Series, was a champion in 1957. Billy Hitchcock, my fellow Alabamian, another fellow Alabamian, but he was in the United States Army Air Force. I'll show you the back since he's my fellow Alabamian. As you can see, born July 31st, 1918 in Inverness, Alabama. Up next, Bob Milliken, who was in the military in 1951 and 1952. Love cars with the clouds in the background. A lot of these have clouds in the background. Solihemus, who was in the United States Navy. Most of these have passed away, but there are a few that are still alive, and here's one of them, Mr. Bobby Shantz, who recently turned 100 years old. He was in the United States Army, three-time All-Star. He was the 1952 American League MVP, was a three-time All-Star. I love this. This is one of my favorite autographs. I love the bold blue Sharpie there. Mr. Shantz also got the very first win in Houston Colt 45's history. Another reason I like him. Here's another veteran that's still alive, Mr. Vern Law, who was in the United States Army. He's a two-time All-Star. He won the 1960 Cy Young Award and also won the 1960 World Series, was on the World Series champion Pirates. And now if you get Vern Law's autograph, he signs all over the card, a lot of his accomplishments. So this, you can tell, is older autograph because he just signed his name. Up next, we have Ned Garber, who was in the United States Naval Air Corps. He was a 1951 All-Star. John Sane, you might remember him. Spawn and Sane and Pray for Rain. But he was a United States Navy pilot, three-time All-Star, six-time World Series champion. Hank Bauer, United States Marine, three-time All-Star, eight-time World Series champion. Al Sima, not sure, I miss your dad, but he was in the United States Navy. Love seeing the old Washington Senators. Bubba Church, another one of my fellow Alabamians. I mean, the name like Bubba, he's got to be from Alabama, right? Bubba Church, who was in the United States Army Air Force. And to show you that he's my fellow Alabamian, as you can see, born in Birmingham, Alabama, September 12th, 1925. Bubba Church. Bob Boyd, who was in the United States Army. He was a three-time Negro League All-Star, and he's the first African-American to play with the White Sox. Nice looking card and autograph from Mr. Bob Boyd. Grady Hatton, United States Army Air Forces. He was a 1952 All-Star. Dick Groat, United States Army, eight-time All-Star, two-time World Series champion. He was the 1960 National League MVP. Kurt Simmons with the Fighting Phillies. He was in the Army National Guard. He was a three-time All-Star, and he played for the 1964 World Series champions. Wally Westlake, United States Coast Guard, 1951 All-Star. Jim Greengrass, who was in the military. I love he signed it number 23. That's my favorite number. He inscribed it number 23, but Jim Greengrass. Up next we have John Antonelli, who was in the United States Army, six-time All-Star, was a 1954 World Series champion, and led the National League in earned run average in 1954. I remember this guy as an announcer. I don't remember him as a player, but I do remember him as an announcer, Joe Garagiola, who was in the United States Army, and he is a 1946 World Series champion. Up next, we have Ralph Kiner, Hall of Famer. He was a United States Navy pilot, 6-time All-Star. He led the National League in home runs 7 times, and he also led the National League in RBIs in 1949. Ralph Kiner. Enos Country Slaughter, who was a sergeant in the Army Air Corps, 10-time All-Star, 4-time World Series champion, and led the National League in RBIs in 1946. Tommy Glaviano, not to be confused with Tommy Glavine, but Tommy Glaviano for the Fighting Phillies. He was with the United States Coast Guard. Toby Atwell, United States Army Air Corps, 1952 All-Star. Paul LaPalme, I like he inscribed it to my dad too, Tommy. Paul LaPalme, United States Army. Alvin Dark, United States Marines, 3-time All-Star, 2-time World Series champion, and he was the 1948 Rookie of the Year. As you can see, it's the last sentence, or next to the last sentence. He was named Rookie of the Year in 1948. Was traded to the Polo Grounders after 2 seasons at Boston. He was an All-American back at LSU. Next, we have Frank Shea, who was in the United States Air Force. He was a 1947 All-Star and won the World Series in 1947. Was a champion there. Up next, we have Joe Coleman with the Philadelphia Athletics here. But he was in the United States Navy, and he was an All-Star in 1948. Ralph Houck, who was in the United States Army. He was a 6-time World Series champion. I like this next one. The Little Professor. Not as popular as his brother Joe, but I like Dom DiMaggio, who was in the United States Navy. He was a 7-time All-Star, and he was the 1950 American League stolen base leader. The Little Professor. Jim Fridley, United States Army. On April the 29th, 1952, he went 6 for 6 in a game, which is really good. We got Harry Dorish, United States Army. He led the American League in saves in 1952, and he's the last American League pitcher to steal home plate in a game. A little bit of trivia there. Trivia answer if anybody ever asks who was the last American League pitcher to steal home in a game. It's Harry Dorish. Another Hall of Famer, Duke Snider, who was in the United States Navy. He was an 8-time All-Star, 2-time World Series champion. And in 1956, he led the National League in home runs. Duke Snider. Paul Minner. He was a Master Sergeant in the United States Army. He gave up Frank Robinson's very first home run. He signed it really light, but you can see it. Don Calloway, United States Army. He inscribed it to my dad at the top, to Tommy. Don Calloway, that's cool. Up next we got Hal Brown, who is in the United States Army Air Forces. He's in the Baltimore Orioles Hall of Fame. Morris Martin, who was in the United States Army. Ed Kraut, United States Army. I like how they got the facsimile autographs in red on the back, so you can kind of match them up, see what it looks like there, the fake autograph, and then see if it matches up with the real autograph. That's fun to do. We got Charlie Silvera, who was in the United States Air Force, and he was a 6-time World Series champion. Let's see if his autographs line up. The real, the facsimile. Elmer Vallow, who was in the United States Army, on May the 1st, 1949. He became the first Major League Baseball player to hit 2 bases-loaded triples in a game. So that's pretty cool. John Lipone, who was in the United States Navy. Hal Jeffcoat, who was in the United States Army. Bob Kennedy was a Marine Corps pilot, and he was a 1948 World Series champion. Sibby Sisti, I love that name. Say it a lot, it'll make you smile. Sibby Sisti, Sibby Sisti. Just a fun name to say, but he was in the United States Coast Guard. And if you've ever watched the baseball movie, The Natural, he was the Pittsburgh manager in the movie The Natural. He played the Pittsburgh manager in The Natural, Sibby Sisti. Jim Delsing, Army Medical Corps. And if you know the story of Eddie Goodell, after Eddie Goodell walked on 4 pitches, Mr. Delsing pinch ran for him. Maybe another trivia helper there. Preston Ward. He served in the military during the Korean War. Turk Lown, U.S. Army. I love those Cubs. The Bears there. Tommy Byrne. He was a Navy gunnery officer. 1950 All-Star, 2-time World Series champion. Al Zarilla, United States Army. He was a 1948 All-Star. Ben Wade, Army Air Force. Irv Noren, United States Army, 1954 All-Star, 5-time World Series champ. Bill Worley, United States Army. Another one of my favorite names, Virgil Trucks. He's a two-time All-Star, 2-time World Series champion. He pitched 2 no-hitters. I didn't mention he was in the United States Navy, but Mr. Virgil Trucks. And he was born April 26, 1919, Birmingham, Alabama. One of my fellow Alabamians Look at his autograph in the facsimile red. Compare it to the blue there. It's fun to do. Ray Boone. That's Bob Boone's father. Or Aaron and Brett Boone's grandfather, Ray Boone. He was in the United States Navy, two-time All-Star, 1948 World Series champion. And in 1955, he led the American League in RBIs. Ray Boone, Bob Boone's father. Les Pedden, who was in the United States Army. Roy Sievers, United States Army, five-time All-Star, 1949 American League Rookie of the Year. I like that. His name is Roy, and he is the Rookie of the Year in 1949 in the American League. And in 1957, he led the American League in home runs. Roy Sievers. Eddie Mixis, United States Navy. He lent his glove to Ernie Banks in Ernie Banks' very first Major League Baseball game, so that's cool. Johnny Pesky, United States Navy, 1946 All-Star. He's in the Red Sox Hall of Fame. Johnny Pesky. Howie Judson, United States Navy. Eddie Pellegrini, United States Navy. He hit a home run in his very first Major League at bat, that's cool. Dave Philly. I would say Dave Philly with the Phillies, but this is when Philadelphia was the Athletics. But he was a military policeman, and he led the American League outfielders in assists 3 years. So he was a good outfielder, strong arm. John Logan, United States Army, four-time All-Star, 1957 World Series champion. Ron Klein, United States Army. Joe Astroff, United States Coast Guard. Dick Brodowski, United States Army. He inscribed it to my dad, Tom. Best wishes, Dick Brodowski. I like the looks of that one. And then the guy that hit the shot heard around the world, Bobby Thompson. He hit it off of Ralph Branca. But he was in the United States Army Air Force, and he was a three-time All-Star. So there you have it. Some of my dad's autographs. And all of these, like I said, we're in the military. As I'm thinking about all the veterans. Super thankful for those that have served our country, fought for our freedoms. And just remembering you today. Remember my granddad. Remembering the real heroes. And be thankful for the veterans. And there's still time left today to let a veteran know you're thankful for them, and let them know that you love them, appreciate them. And just a reminder for those that don't know, I'm doing a GoFundMe for my father who passed away. Like I said, Thursday. This was his autograph collection that I just showed. But he passed away Thursday, and he didn't have a lot of insurance to cover the funeral expenses. So I'm trying to raise money for that. And if you can help, please do. I don't like to ask for money, but it would be helpful. And if you can't help in that way, maybe get the word out. And if you can't help in that way, at least pray for me and my mom. You know, it's tough. It's very tough. But I thank you, all of you that have watched this far, or any portion of it at that. It means a lot anytime anybody watches. And I hope you have a great Tuesday remainder, and I hope to see you again somewhere down the road. But thank you. If you're a veteran, thank you. Can never thank you enough, but I will try. And that's why I've done this video. But God bless you, and I hope you have a great day.